Good to see you guys. So we are going to work through some, actually our last piece of the Made for More series today. And we're actually talking about moving from more strategy to more surrender. And you may think you don't use strategy in your life, but we're going to talk about that, what that looks like. But before we do, we have to celebrate a few things. We'll get to this slide on the screen here in just a minute. But Friday night, we had a fall bash that last year we planned for this. It hadn't rained in months, and it rained all day long last year on our fall bash. So we were like, surely that will not happen 2 years in a row. And it didn't rain all day. It just rained right before we were going to start. So we moved everything inside. It flowed amazing. We had some incredible volunteers who pulled it off. And yeah, let's give it up for that. We had hundreds and hundreds of people in this building, about a quarter of which were brand new, never been inside of our church before, came off of that sign, and were just here to have fun with their kids. Isn't that awesome what God did? So we're just going to pray that they would come into the church and check it out, and that we would just be able to love on them well. And so what we're doing here is we are actually able to be a part of history in this city. This has never been done before, and God is allowing City Life to be a part of this. And so I am a point person for an organization called Christ Together, and what they do is they take their resources and their tools, and they try to get churches to bond together as a church, okay? Now, obviously, these expressions of church will stay the same. They are individual churches, but we want to see each other as the church in Greenwood, in Indianapolis, and in this state. And so I've been able to get these pastors around the table, actually here at our church. Christ Together pitched this vision to them about being the church unified in this city, and these guys have all bought in, and we know that other churches will come on board. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're praying for these men in their churches every single week because, like I said, this is something that has never been done before in this city and is happening scarcely around the country. But this is something we're seeing God take traction with, and pastors are surrendering to this to say, okay, what would it look like if the prayer of Jesus in John 17 for unity of the believers in the body would actually come true? And that's what this looks like, okay? So this is a really big deal. We want you guys to be thinking and praying about this with us, because if we can watch this happen as it is right now, we are going to see something happen in this city that only God can take the credit for, and that's been our prayer the whole entire time. So as we jump into the message, let's pray for that, and we're going to pray for these churches as well. So would you guys join me in prayer? God, we just want to come before you, and I just want to thank you so much for the favor that you have on us. God, Friday night was absolutely incredible. We thank you so much for an absolutely amazing group of volunteers who made that happen, God. Specifically, Terry Blaze that planned all of this and got everything together. Unfortunately, God got sick and couldn't even partake in it, and so Ashley Roddy picked up the baton and ran with it and literally set everything up and made it happen, and all the countless volunteers that came alongside of her and made it happen, God. We just want to pray a special blessing over them, God, and favor on their life for their servant's heart. God, we also want to just bring these churches before you. So Andrew from Antioch, and Ken from New Heights, and Matt from Greenwood Christian, and Danny from Emmanuel, and Brock from Redeemer, and of course City Life. God, we pray that you would protect the enemy away from these leaders and away from these churches, that we would be able to move forward with your favor and your blessing, God, to see something done in this city that we've never seen before. Father, we pray your favor on this as we are actually being able to answer your prayer in John 17 for unity. And God, I just pray right now as these men are preaching the word, as their leadership teams are up, whoever it is that is communicating this morning, that the message of the gospel is going forward, and they're praying for us as well. So God, we pray for today as we think about moving from more strategy to more surrender. This is going to stretch us just a little bit today, but it's going to cap off this whole entire series of being made for more and what that looks like in our life. So we love you, and we ask these things in your son's name. Amen. So if you have missed any of this has been a 6-week series. Today wraps that up. And the whole point of it is there's a lot of frustration in Christianity where we are looking for always for the next thing and something more. And we get bored with our Christian life and we don't know what to do. And just reading a daily devotional plan doesn't get it for us. And just staying connected in some prayer doesn't get it for us. And so we're like, man, there has to be something more. We would say that there is, but what we want to do is we want to help unlock that for you. So if you've missed any of of this, you can go back and you can watch these messages. You can listen to them on our website. But we want you to stay engaged with this series. So today, we're talking about moving from more strategy to more surrender. Now, you may say, I don't have a strategy. I don't use strategy in my life. If you do not use strategy, that in itself is a strategy. I want you to know that, okay? If you don't have a plan for your life, that is a strategic plan for your life. And although you may not think in these terms, that's exactly what is happening. So as we're going to see today, we're going to culminate, kind of bring everything together. We're going to address who our enemy is that we're fighting and how we can actually withstand him, okay? Now, we're going to make some very clarifying points today. If you're a note taker, you're going to be writing a lot because we are going to work through just 8 verses today, and we're going to make some very, very clear distinctions. But I want you to think about a war. No war in history has ever been won by surrender. Agreed? It's always been won by a tactical leader and commander and group of leaders who have had a better strategy than the enemy that they're fighting. In order for us to win this war, has nothing to do with tactic or strategy. It has everything to do with surrender. Well, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, as you fight your enemy, what you have to remember is you don't have to defeat him. He's already been defeated. Amen? So you do not have to overcome an enemy. You do not have to defeat the enemy. You are just withstanding the temptation that they're trying to destroy you. Okay? So we need to get it out of our mind that we're trying to defeat our enemy. He's already been defeated. We are only simply trying to understand how we can withstand all of the attacks that he brings on us constantly in our life. So let's go to Ephesians 6, and we're going to start working through this verse by verse, okay? Here in the very first verse is one of the most important phrases we will see today. It says, finally, be strengthened by the Lord and by his vast strength. Okay. First and foremost, out of the gate, be strengthened by the Lord is probably the most crucial statement of all of this. We cannot do anything in our own strength. And if you understand that, you're probably going, yeah, that's true. But putting that into practice is a totally different deal. And so as you're thinking through, I know there are certain things I can defeat in my life. That is a strategy of yours. There are certain things I can stay away from. That is a strategy of yours. I know if I don't go near this, I'm not going to fall. I'm not going to give in. That is a strategy of yours. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about more surrender as we move on. In order for you to be made for more, it's going to require more surrender. It's only going to happen if you understand your strength comes from God. Now, we understand that knowledgeably, but what does that look like? Well, if you and I are at the gym working out together, and you're stronger than me, I can't just put my hand on you and get strength from you to be stronger. That's not how it works. But in human terms, we match strength for strength, physically, mentally, emotionally. With God, he says, if you want to be strong, you have to lay all your strength down. You can't strategize how you're going to defeat somebody. You can't strategize how you're going to get ahead in this Christian life. You can't do all that. You actually have to lay all your strength down and become weak, and then I will make you strong. So this is backwards to everything we're ever taught. What we understand about life in general is do more, harder, tougher, stronger. And Jesus is like, that is actually not at all what I want from you. See, as I surrendered my life to God, this is Jesus talking, and I was obedient to death on a cross, and I went into a grave because I was dead, and I rose again 3 days later. That strength came from my surrender. Your strength will be no different. And so what I want you guys to start to process now is it is his vast strength. If you're the most incredibly strong person literally on planet Earth, you still have a limit. We do these competitions all over the globe, World's Strongest Man, who's the fittest, and CrossFit Games, and so on and so on and so on. And there's a person who is crowned the strongest man in the world, the strongest woman in the world, the best, most in-shape athlete in the world. They still have a limit. And what I want you to understand is you do too, but this power is limitless if you understand how to tap into it. So look at verse 11. Verse 11 says this, put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the schemes of the devil. Now, what I want you to understand about this is, church, I had to make very clear distinction. We never work for our salvation. We surrender and trust God for our salvation. But after that, there is work involved. Notice the first two words, put on. Now, although it would be really cool if we could hit a button and like Iron Man just all of a sudden be encapsulated in armor, be pretty amazing, right? Fly, shoot things out of my hand, and if I didn't like somebody, stuff like that, that would be cool. That's not how this works, though. He said, no, you actually have to put this on. Now remember, this is not your strength. You're not trying to defeat that enemy. You're standing against his schemes in your life. So to put this on is action every single day by you. For some of you, this is your routine. You wake up after you've hit snooze 37 times. Then you go out and you stumble your way probably to the bathroom, and then the very first part of your strategy is your phone, probably. Right? Daily routine. That's what we're putting on. That's typically what a lot of mornings look like for most of us. This should look like something different. First off, you realize that we're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? So every morning that you wake up and your eyes open, you're like, okay, I'm still here on earth. All right, God, I have to put this on. So I'm going to ask that you would protect me against the schemes of the devil. Let me pray on this armor. We're going to get to what that looks like. But this is how this should start to change in your life. Here's what I need you to understand about these schemes. Here's what it means. It's cunning arts, deceit, craft, and trickery. Unlike the movies, where there's this pitchforked red horn thing coming at you in front of your face to attack you, this is not what the Bible describes as Satan. You want to know how Satan gets you? By getting you to believe lies about yourself, to swirling things up in your life. Listen to the definition again. Cunning arts, deceit, craft, and trickery. It's funny how a lot of times we can look at two things, they both look right, but one of them is very, very wrong. I would offer up to you, this is even a way that the enemy uses to draw you away from him. Let me just say this to you. If you're making a decision based on all the ways you can justify this decision, it's probably not the right decision. Because what I want you to see is the enemy works so subtly underneath the radar that most of the time we don't even see or understand what he is doing. And so it's so easy to get tripped up on this craftiness, this deceit, and this trickery. And then the root word of this is actually to slander, accuse, and defame. Okay, so think about this. When your name is slandered, somebody talks about you, all of us universally hate that. Because you're trying to come at me and my character. And when I've been accused of something, right or wrong, my first posture is defense, typically. Now, there's fight or flight in all of us. You're one or the other. But even if you're flighting away from an issue, you're defending yourself probably. You're like, I didn't do that, as you're running away. Right? And so what tends to happen is this is where the enemy gets us, slander, accusation, and defaming or defamation. So listen to this. There's a few words none of us would ever use together 5 years ago. How about YouTube famous or Instagram famous? Have you ever heard those words together in just a few years ago? The answer is no, you have not, because that's not a real thing, except it is a real thing, unfortunately. Any person on Instagram that thinks they're an influencer, what is the word you see underneath their name? I just gave it to you. The word influencer. Go to any social media profile that has a certain amount of followers, and what you will see underneath that they have written about themselves is they are an influencer. What I would argue is we're all influencers, right? Whether we write it on a profile or not. But I want you to see how the enemy has set up a vast network for deception, okay? Imagine you're as famous as you are in your circle of friends, and there's always like the cool person, and there's always a scale in friendship, right? Of the people I can hang around with in real life. That has gone completely out the window now. First off, if I'm with my friends, I'm texting them in conversation, not even talking to them, right? I am then watching their status to see if mine is better or theirs is better. If theirs is better, I'm going to do something else to get more attention and therefore get more famous. And what has happened is there's been something created that we are all longing for, and that is acceptance by people that somehow we have actually given them the power to tell us whether we're popular or not. Does anyone else hear how crazy that is? I mean, honestly, we put ourselves out there to say, hey, do you like me or not? We have given them the power to go, this picture, this event, this video is going to be what makes people like me. And then we let them be the judge of that. That is crazy. Because we now live our lives completely for the approval or disapproval of other people. Because we don't want to be slandered, we don't want to be accused, and we don't want to be defamed. There's literally movies being made about this because the suicide rate has never been this high in all of human history because of this deception right here. So for an example, how this works is distraction. We talked about this last week, living an intentional life or a distracted life. If you missed that, I encourage you to go back and listen to that. What happens is distraction. Because God sets us on this path, he surrenders us, he sets us free, and he says, this is your one and only single mission. Go be a hope dealer to the world. And then we live life based around that particular mission. But what happens is we get drawn away and we start to understand there's other things and my attention needs to go here and I'm splitting it between this and now I'm caught. So we get caught up in being famous. You want to know who the most famous YouTube star is right now? It is an 8-year-old kid named Ryan who made $26 million opening up presents on videos that people watch. And no, I promise I'm not making that up because it'd be really funny if I was. That's actually the truth. His number one video that is ever viewed is called Big Egg Surprise with 1.9 billion views. That video alone made him millions of dollars. And we have made Ryan famous. Congratulations, Ryan. You are a star now. Like, this is what we deal with, church. Okay? This is what makes somebody famous in our culture. Now, there's a whole other side to this of all the comments against poor little 8-year-old Ryan, who was just opening presents and having a good time, and somebody decided to video him, and he's a multimillionaire now. But he's blocked and protected because he has a good dad who runs a social media page and doesn't ever let him see all the people trying to defame him. But what I want you to understand about this, church, is the enemy is going to side door you and backdoor you, and he will come at your face sometimes, but a lot of times we don't even see this happening. So if we understand our enemy, look at verse 12. Verse 12 says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil spiritual forces in the heavens. We cannot visibly see our enemy. If you understand, our battle is not against flesh and blood. For any of you in a relationship, a husband and wife relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, a friend relationship, this is going to make practical sense to you. My wife knows how to push all of my buttons, and I know how to push all of hers. When we get in a disagreement, it makes sense for me to think I'm fighting against her because she is the person in the flesh in front of my face. What I have to realize, though, is the enemy is above us swirling these things that he knows are going to get us to bite on them. I take it out on her, she takes it out on me, and the enemy is like, good job, you guys, you idiots. This isn't even against you two. I'm swirling all this stuff over, and you can't even see it. This happens in friendships. This happens in any relationship, a boss and an employee. It doesn't matter. We are constantly going to struggle with. Let me give you something really simple to take ammo away from the enemy who's going to use this against you all the time. I start to get in an argument with my wife. If I could just stop and go, no, I am not going to fall for this trap one more time. Are you kidding me? I know what you're doing. You're trying to get her and I against each other. That is not going to work today because I put all of this armor on and you can't get through it. And if she would do the same thing, and if you would do the same thing in relationships, what we would see is we would see a completely different landscape of relationships in this city, and it would spread rapidly. But what you have to understand is our fight is not against flesh and blood. Well, it sure feels like it when you turn on the news and you see all the war and destruction happening in our country. That's because the enemy is like swirling and stirring and getting people against each other, and people are taking sides and things are breaking out because we think we're fighting each other, and we're not. Well, you have to understand this word struggle. I actually like this word because it's the word wrestling. I wrestled in high school. All three of my sons are wrestlers, and I coached high school wrestling for years, so I like the word struggle. It means there's a battle and a victory to be won. But here's what it means in the Greek here. Wrestling is where one tries to throw the other, and victory is won by holding the other one down with their hand on their throat. We do not do that in high school wrestling, although that would be cool, but this is what this means, okay? So if I am faced off against somebody, my objective is to throw them on the ground, hold them down, and put my hand around their throat. I'm going to choke the life out of them according to this. Now, let me redirect your attention. Our struggle, that wrestling match, is not against flesh and blood. It is against something that you cannot even see. And when that enemy hip tosses you with some craftiness and some trickery and some deceit and some defamation, and your character is in question, and he puts you on the ground and he is choking the life out of you, the only chance you stand, because you cannot defeat him in your power, is to realize where the power comes from. And as you start to put this armor on every morning, he can no longer do this to you. What I want you to understand about this, church, is this is your choice, whether you stand up to the enemy or you're defeated by him. He cannot beat you unless you let him. I want that to sink in for a second. He cannot beat you unless you let him. Can he wound you? Yes. Can he sideline you for a period of time? Yes. Can he defeat you? Absolutely not. See, this word power literally means power of choice. You realize you're the one who decides who wins this battle? It's the power of choice, literally physical and mental power of choice. So if you're here today and you're recognizing you have literally are on the ground and you're being choked out right now, I just need you to hear me. I'm going to say this as gently as possible. You allowed that to happen. But the beautiful thing about this is you can get up from that position. Number one. Number two, that never has to happen in your life again. Again, he can wound you. He can sideline you. He can pause progress for the gospel by the things that is allowed to come into your life, but he cannot defeat you, church. He's already been defeated. You have the power of God inside of you that raised Jesus from the dead, and you are given the ability to stand against this enemy. You just decide who's going to win. I really wish you were excited about that, because you should be. Amen, church? Okay, good. Let's keep moving. So, look at verse 13. Verse 13 says, for this reason, here's your conjunction connection point. Take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to resist in the evil day, which, by the way, is every day that you wake up and you're still here on earth, and having prepared everything to take your stand. Notice there's preparation that goes into this. As I go to sleep at night, I am preparing for the next day's battle. If your home was in the middle of Afghanistan, Iraq, or any other war-torn country right now, you would take safety precaution and measures to make sure your house was secure before you went to bed. And you would wake up in the morning understanding you're in a war because you would hear bombs exploding and know that the enemy is close by. This is no different. You have to understand that an enemy wants to destroy you every single day you're on this planet, and he doesn't ever relent. So my preparedness beforehand is going to determine what happens the next day. This isn't a reactionary thing. I should be preparing and planning for this. Look at verse 14. Here's where we get into this armor. He says, stand, therefore, with truth, like a belt around your waist. Now, this can be a little bit confusing because the belt around my waist holds my pants up. Agreed? So if I have the belt, I'm going to put my belt of truth on to hold my pants up today, Jesus. No, that's not what he's talking about. If you've ever seen a Roman soldier and they have this belt around the middle of their waist, not only was that a protective wear, the rest of their armor connects to that. It's a very vital piece. Understand that the truth is the vital piece of where the enemy is going to constantly attack you. Okay? Remember the understanding of this. The defamation, he's coming after your character. He's trying to get you to believe lies. You know the only way to not believe lies is if you believe the truth more. And if you believe the truth that God said about you of who you are, you're his son, you're his daughter, you're an heir to a throne, you're forgiven, you're made clean, you're set free. If you believe that truth, no lie can penetrate the belt of truth that holds the rest of this armor together for you. Okay, so understand there's a deceiver and a slanderer who wants nothing more than you to believe what he's telling you. So I want to paint a picture for you. Let's imagine that you have been on a pretty good run for Jesus, let's say. You've been reading your Bible, you've been praying, and man, you just get blindsided out of nowhere. And you fall hard, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's just to hide away and be isolated away from community for you. Well, I don't know what it is for you. Here's where these lies are going to get you. You realize you can't go back to God like this, right? I mean, God, you really think he's going to accept you back? You're a loser, man. You keep falling to the same stuff over and over and over again. Do you really think God is going to forgive you for this? I don't care what the Bible says. Oh, if we ask him, he's going to forgive you, please. He knows what he knows what you're thinking right now. Nobody else knows what you're thinking. If they knew, nobody would even talk to you again. Don't believe this. See, when you don't believe what God says about you, those are the things you believe about yourself, that you're worthless, that God doesn't love you any longer, that you've moved outside of his grace and there's no way back in. Lies, 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 and we believe them all the time. Why? Because the central piece to our armor is missing. We can't even connect any of the other things to it because we didn't put on this belt of truth. So when I'm set free in my salvation and God says all these things about me and he puts this banner over my life as forgiven and set free, I have the choice to believe that or not. And I want you to realize in the most practical way you can, if you don't believe that about your life, you're calling the God of the universe a liar. And he's not a liar. The enemy who wants to deceive you is the liar. That's his name. Liar. Deceiver. Accuser of the brothers and sisters. Church, this is a fight you have to engage in all the time because this belt of truth connects to the breastplate of righteousness. They say that the head is the most vulnerable part on the body. The heart is second to that. So the breastplate of righteousness that would connect to the belt of truth now covers all of this for you. This allows you to be able to stand in defense against an enemy attack. Well, the righteousness, the definition of that word is a right standing with God. If I believe the truth, I believe I have a right standing with God. Therefore, I believe I can talk to him. I can ask him to forgive me, and he will. But if I don't put this on, I don't think I have a right standing with God anymore. I think he's mad at me. I think I have to earn his favor back. I think that his love is now turned to annoyance or even hate at the highest level. All because I'm not wearing this breastplate of righteousness, which is attached to my belt of truth. What you have to understand about this is although I've given you this picture several times of the enemy being right here next to you, he is, and this is the pressure I want you to feel. But what I need you to know is he steps out away from you and he takes these arrows and he shoots them at you like this. And he starts to stand to the side and he starts to get in front of you and he starts to even try to move around behind you and tries to hit you with these fiery darts that we're going to look at here in a minute. And what you have to understand is this attack, he's not going to come here and punch you in the face or hit you with a club or shoot you in the head. He's going to do this strategically around you. So, with that being said, look at verse 15. Verse 15 says, "And your feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. Okay. I cannot be at peace with God if I don't think he likes me. Therefore, I can take no piece of the hope of God to anybody else if I don't have peace with God. What I need you to understand about this, these shoes for the gospel of peace, here's why the Roman soldiers were so much more skilled and could take so much more ground and literally controlled nearly the world, is because they understood shoes. Okay? Most people in this day, if they had shoes, it was just this really thin piece of leather underneath their foot to where when they stepped on rocks, it didn't hurt as bad. The Romans developed a shoe that encompassed your whole entire foot, and then they put spikes on the bottom of it so they would have incredible traction and could cover much more ground much faster, and it would give them a better fighting stance in battle. Well, I want you to imagine you're actually in a physical altercation with a person, and you'll understand this living here in Indiana. They're standing on dry ground, and you're standing on an ice patch. You are immediately at a disadvantage because I don't even have my feet under me, right? And so to understand that the gospel of peace is my footing, you have to believe that what he says about you is true and that you're at peace with God. Understand, your sin is what separates you from him, and the Bible calls you an enemy. In salvation, you're then called his son or daughter. You're at peace with him because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, making salvation possible. If that is taken out from under you, you are going to slip and fall and not believe this truth every single time, church. Look at verse 16. Verse 16 says, in every situation, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. All right, here's what this looked like. The average human being back then was 5 feet tall, okay? So about this tall. Well, about here, because I'm like 7 feet tall. About right here, okay. Their shield was 4 feet tall, 2.5 feet wide. When they came into a battle formation, they got down behind their shield because it was wide enough to cover them and it was tall enough they could duck underneath it. But imagine the only way to live and win in a battle is by the people that are next to you. So if I'm hiding down behind my shield and there's an enemy right here, he has full access to still kill me. So I'm going to have to turn and fight this one, but then this guy's over here, and I have to turn and fight this one. And so what this looked like, this picture, is they would put their shields together, and they would form a line or a circle in a battle formation, and they were completely protected from the enemy down underneath their shields because they would light arrows on fire, and they would shoot them at them. And then their shield would catch that, and they could distinguish the fiery arrow. Your enemy fires the same things at you, but it looks a little different. He's going to fire temptation, anxiety, fear, worry, lust, pride, doubt, anger. Those are the arrows he's going to fire at you. Now, imagine you get separated from your community. Maybe your thing is to go hide in isolation. You're over here. You have a shield, maybe even put it all on, but you're standing back here by yourself. Your enemy doesn't even have to work hard to hit you, because you're by yourself. Now imagine if you're in your community, you're locked in with your community, and your community knows your struggles. And let's say that you're in battle one day, and you don't even have the strength to hold the shield up, and it just falls, and you are vulnerable as can be to the enemy, and you catch a dart right here. Your community is going to walk next to you, and they're going to slide their shields in front of you, and they're going to protect you, and they're going to take you to safety out of the battle. But if you do that alone, you're going to die. And what I need you to understand about this, why we are constantly driving you towards community and discipleship, is you have to realize that you can't do this alone. Because the enemy gets you alone and cornered. He is literally foaming at the mouth and salivating because it's not even hard anymore. He's like, man, this is so easy. Bink. And we're just done. Like a flaming arrow, temptation can spring up immediately when we have to defend it or get shot. Sin seeks to pierce our defenses and inflame us in that sin. So, what is our offense? Look at verse 17. He says, take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. This helmet protects all of the most vulnerable parts of your body. And it is the one thing that we can actually use for our protection against that fatal death blow. But what I want you to realize is your salvation is that covering. See, this is why we're so intentional about what salvation really is here. Because the Bible is very, very clear on what it is. And so when people, they make emotional decisions, they raise their hand and they say, yes, I want to pray that prayer, and then nothing happens like the Bible says. They don't move from death to life. They don't stop doing those things. They're not obedient to Jesus. They just had this prayer of salvation, and emotionalism really sets in. Well, what happens is you've never put this helmet on. So you're vulnerable and you're open, but you think you have that salvation. So what happens is you're constantly and continually exposed, and you have nothing to cover you, so you feel nervous and you feel anxious, and you ask questions like, man, I don't know, if I died today, would I see Jesus? And we're constantly in fear of our salvation, and so we're constantly praying that prayer, God, please save me. God, please save me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. It's because we don't have that covering over us, where the Bible is so clear that says you have to come to the end of your life, surrender to me, and then I will take your life and give you life. I can tell you, church, that helmet of salvation is so strong on top of me, not because of what I did, but because I trust him for my salvation. I don't worry about that. I don't have to ask him into my heart again. I already did. That's not even what it looks like anyways. I just surrender my life to him. I believe him for who he is. He took that heart of stone out of me and put a beating heart of flesh in me, and the Holy Spirit lives inside of there, and I have the power of Jesus inside of me. And I don't worry about that, because the helmet of salvation is securely on, and that is where my power comes from. But this sword, I want you to realize the only thing that Jesus did in his time of 40 days and 40 nights of fasting, the only words he spoke were Scripture. That is his offense. The Bible says this. It is said this. Get away from me, Satan, because of this. And if Jesus only saw fit to use Scripture, and it was good enough for him, I think it's good enough for us. So what does that mean for you, church? Well, if you don't read your Bible, you have no offensive weapon. Hey, I'm on a daily reading Bible plan. Does that count? It does count. But are you memorizing it? Do you understand what it says in your life? Are you spending time under the weight of the Word? Or are you just reading it and checking it off of a plan? Because there's a really big difference. Because if I were to go out into war and take a gun with no bullets in it, you think I am loaded and ready to go, and I pull the trigger and nothing happens because I don't know how to load my weapon. And so my sword of this Bible knowledge and understanding and how to apply it to my life is the only offensive weapon I have, but it's connected to prayers. We're going to see in the next verse. Look at verse 18. It says, pray at all times in the Spirit, with every prayer and request, and stay alert, with all perseverance and intercession for all the saints. We could spend a whole entire series on that one verse, but look at it again. Pray at all times in the Spirit. Be perseverant, constantly staying alert, praying for all of your brothers and sisters that are doing this with you. What does that look like to be praying all the time? That doesn't mean you wake up and you stay by your bed all of your waking hours and you're just reaching out to God. That's not what that means. But it means you are constantly and continually talking to God on all of your waking moments. There's an open line between you and God. So I'll give you this communication in a marriage. I can communicate with my wife once a day about the niceties. Hey, good morning. Hope you have a good day. I'll see you tonight when you get home. I can talk to her again that night. Hey, I hope you had a good day at work. What are we eating for dinner? Hey, thanks for dinner. It was good. I'll see you in the morning. Our communication would be very, very light and lame. And some of you are like, holy crud, does he see our marriage? That is not what I'm talking about with God. So my wife and I actually talk quite a bit during the day. We see each other in the morning. We text a lot during the day. We have phone calls during the day. I see her at night. We have communication at night. And I always have an open line of communication to her. That's what I'm talking about. This is what this is talking about. To pray at all times. But let me point out a few more things. Being in the Spirit means you're constantly and continually listening to what God is saying in your life, and you're responding and you're reacting towards it. Staying alert means this enemy, I know what he's going to do. I'm going to watch a dart coming, and I'm just going to hold my shield up and I'm going to stop it. Because I'm connected to the Holy Spirit who's saying, hey, Mike, watch out for this. Mike, watch out over here. Don't step there. And so I'm going to be connected to him. And so I'm never going to be defeated by him. I will fall. I will be bruised. I will be sidelined, but I will never be defeated by him if this is the way that you live. Now, as a follower of Jesus in this room, I pray to God this is how you're living. I really do. But if it is not, let me tell you what the enemy is going to tell you right now. He is going to tell you you are too far gone to ever do this in your life. If you're not living like this right now, okay? He is going to say, nobody in this room knows what you're doing. First off, don't you dare tell them, because no one in here will accept you if they knew what you were doing. That's lie number one. Lie number two, you're way too far down this path. You have no armor on. You don't even know who you are in Jesus. Why bother? Lie number two. Lie number three, hey, these people are really busy at this church. They do not have time to pray with you. Lie number three. Lie number four, you just need to get out of this building. We'll deal with this on our own. Just let them finish this last song. Let them do their prayer thing. You get out of here. Hey, me and you, we'll do this together. Lie number four. Lie number five, you don't need this community, man. We can do this on our own. Hey, we're fine being over here and being isolated. You do not need them. Lie number five, and I could continue on this path. Don't believe any of them. I don't care what you're doing. And more importantly, neither does God. Whatever sin you're trapped in, whatever darts are sticking out of your flesh from the enemy right now, it doesn't matter. We're here to help walk with you and pull those darts out to rewrite your position with God if you're a follower of Jesus, and let you realize the truths of Scripture over your life. And if you're sitting here today and you're not a follower of Jesus, what I hope you're hearing is oh man, there's hope for me too? Yes. Absolutely. Don't let the enemy convince you of anything else, because there's absolutely hope for you too. It doesn't matter what you've done. God already knows, and he wants to receive you. So the way that we end our service is we give you an opportunity to respond. Tony's going to come up and he's going to play a song that's just going to lead us in this response. We have people positioned at that couch right over there, those couches. If you want prayer and you want to go see them, go see them. If not, you want to go to the back of the room, flag one of us down. Pray with somebody next to you. It doesn't matter. Just please do business with God, because this is our time to respond. Let me ask you to close your eyes. I just want to ask you one question. If you're not a follower of Jesus, I know there was some appeal in this today, because you have seen that there is hope for what you're dealing with. So my question to you is, would you be willing to just have a conversation with us? Would you be willing to just engage and see what that looks like? If so, as I come off the stage, or any of the people that you've seen on the stage, grab one of us and just say, hey, can we have a conversation? See any of the people back at the sound booth. See the people on the couches. It doesn't matter. Grab anybody that you think could pray with you and ask them to. Raise your hand. We'll come to your seat. Those of you that are followers of Jesus in this room, I want you to know that I am rooting for you big time today. Because if you and I can understand this, do you realize what is going to happen to that enemy who thinks he has you all figured out? Do you realize what's going to happen to him when he realizes that because you're getting this and you're going to put the armor on, that he can't do this to you any longer? Do you realize what could happen if you would just right now confess your sin, something like this: God, please forgive me. I do not put the armor on. What I need you to hear is the Bible says, he says, yes, I will forgive you. Now, we have work to do right here. And that work is surrender. Remember, it's not strategy, it's surrender. So what you're going to do is you're going to go, okay, God, I'm going to surrender my ways to you. I've been believing lies, but I know what you say about me as your son and daughter. I know that I'm an heir to a throne. I know I'm forgiven. I know I'm set free. I know I am your most prized possession on this earth. Please forgive me for believing the enemy's lies. And you're going to walk back towards God. Now, this is where we come alongside of you and help you. Remember the community piece. So flag us down. Come and see us. Pray with us. Go to the couches, whatever it is. Please do business with God. I'm rooting for you and praying for you. God, I love you, and I pray that we would get this today. Help us to respond accordingly. In Jesus' name, amen.